As I said, our second guest, unfortunately, Ramzy Baroud, Dr. Ramzy Baroud, couldn't be with us today, so we're going to have a look at a little video message he's done. To give you some background, Ramzy is a Palestinian-American journalist. He's an author, syndicated columnist who's been writing about the Middle East and the Palestinian question in particular for over 20 years. His articles have been published in hundreds of newspapers and journals worldwide, and he's been a guest on various television and radio programs. He's also a guest speaker at the House of Commons in London.
Hello everyone. My name is Ramzy Baroud. I'm a Palestinian author and a journalist. I was born and raised in the Gaza Strip. I was born in a refugee camp called Nusayrat. It is the largest in size in the Gaza Strip and the second largest in population after the refugee camp of Jabalia. The people of Nusayrat come from villages that were depopulated in 1948 after an onslaught, a war, and the ethnic cleansing of Palestine 68 years ago. Most of the villagers who lived in southern Palestine were either pushed out or managed to escape to Gaza. That's where most of the Gaza refugees come from. In 1948, there was about 200,000 refugees who ended up in the Gaza Strip. Right now, Gaza is about 1.8 million people. The vast majority of them are refugees and descendants of these refugees. Of course, you have refugee camps in the West Bank and in Lebanon, in Syria, throughout the Middle East. Their story is kind of a story that we all Palestinians have in common. We Palestinians are united by many aspects of our life, by culture, by history, by blood, by so many other aspects, but we are also united by our original story, by our what we call in Arabic our waja, our agony, our pain of what happened to us in 1948. Palestine was ethnically cleansed, and a whole different nation came from Europe and other parts of the world and took over our homeland. And for 68 years, the Middle East did not really see any real stability because of this original sin that has never been dealt with, not in any just manner, at least. It has been this kind of festering wound that has not only invited instability and conflict and war in the land of Palestine, but also throughout the Middle East. I doubt that there is any conflict in the Middle East that somehow is not linked to Palestine in one way or the other. And of course, Israeli fingers is involved in most, or are involved in most of these conflicts. Israel invaded not just Palestine and ethnically cleansed its people, but also invaded Lebanon, invaded Egypt, occupied the Sinai, invaded Syria, occupied the Golans, invaded Jordan, and so forth. It's a country that has been created by war and ethnic cleansing and blood, and since then it has avowed to become this warring nation. It convinced itself that it's just basically is incapable of living in peace with its neighbors. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu repeated this false analogy just recently, really, in February rather, where he described Israel as a villa in the jungle. Ehud Barak has used that term. Others have used that term. They are a villa in the jungle. Israel is this paradise that, just they have to build fences and walls, and they have to surround themselves because of the wild beasts. Israeli terminology is rather extremely demeaning of their neighbors. Palestinians are cockroaches, they are beasts, and this goes back all the way to the founding of Israel. It's not new terminology. It's not linked to, suicide bombing. It's not linked to rockets from Gaza. It's not linked to any of that. Their perception that they brought with them from Europe is really rather fascist and racist from the very, very get-go. It's the same racist and fascist mentality that basically influenced the narrative of previous Israeli leaders, Golda Meir, for example, when she denied that Palestinians existed. Not that we came and we took someone else's country, she said. Palestinians did not exist. This assumption, Palestinians do not exist, has been repeated, and it was repeated recently, actually, in American primary election debates. And it's not that they don't recognize that we exist as people, that Ramzy Baroud is not who he says he is. They just don't see us worthy of being people, of being a nation, that we are invented, as it's being said sometimes, that we are this fabricated nation of people who are Bedouins, nomads, and so forth. That helped in the dehumanization process. When you don't see your enemy as an equal being, killing your enemy, corralling your enemy, imprisoning your enemy, torturing your enemy, pulverizing your enemy, it's not an issue. It's not there are no moral accountability to doing so, because your enemy is not a human, is not a being, is not a nation, does not have identity. This is why it's so essential for them to utilize this kind of demeaning terminology. They're not just being mean, they are being calculating with this kind of language. Palestinians, on the other hand, have been fighting back. We have been fighting back for so many years, and we will continue to fight back, partly because we actually have no other option but to fight back. But the other reason is that Palestinians are quite tough. They know who they are. They are very aware of their responsibility, not just towards Palestine, but towards the world at large. We are caught in this situation where we are the last defenders against Zionism. We want the world to join us in this fight. We want our cause to become universal, and we are working very, very hard to achieving that. Until that happens, we are the vanguards against Zionism, and we fought them in every possible way. We fought them in our stones in 1987 Intifada. We fought them with our poetry and art and graffiti on the walls. We fought them with our hunger strikes in prisons. We fought them with our stubbornness and our determination, never under any circumstance to be defeated. In our dictionary, in our culture, the word defeat doesn't exist in a practical way. The fact that I surrender, I am defeated, it just doesn't exist. And this is the kind of mentality that Israel is having such a heck of a time with, because you can defeat an army if you have a superior air force. You can defeat a bunch of gunmen if you have stronger firepower, but you can't defeat a people. If they are determined and they have decidedly and collectively agreed that we are not going to give in under any circumstance, you simply cannot defeat them. So what Israel is trying to do, or has been trying to do for a long time, is corralling them, imprisoning them, putting them in Bantustans, imprisoning them, humiliating them, killing them, driving them out, doing everything in their power to criminalize and to defeat the Palestinian people as a people. It's not our leaders who are keeping us together. Our leaders, look what happened in our leaders in Ramallah and elsewhere. They've already sold out. They are not the reason why we are fighting. This is not an elitist struggle for anything. This is about people who are standing their ground. Refugees, peasants, middle class workers, moms, dads, who are in every possible way and every aspect of their life are actually fighting back. And we need you. We need you to be part of this fight. We don't need you to come and engage the Israelis militarily, but we need you to take part in your role and your responsibility as a human being, as a citizen of this world, as someone who would like to see freedom and justice prevails in the Middle East. And it's no longer about Palestine and the Palestinians alone. And it's not even about the Middle East as a whole. It's about the world, because Palestine has been this festering wound, and that wound is now reaching other parts of the Middle East, and now it's reaching other parts of the world, and it's in Europe, and it's in Africa, and it's elsewhere. And we keep saying Palestine is the issue. As John Pilger once said, Palestine is the issue, and Palestine will always remain the issue. So no matter what we do to distract ourselves from that truism, that reality, that if you can't find a solution to what's happening in Palestine, you can't possibly stabilize the Middle East. And when I say find a solution, I don't mean some sort of a concoction like the Oslo nonsense that took place and wasted 20 years of blood and tears and land and fight and conflict. And we knew from the very beginning that it was not going to bring anything good for Palestinians. Palestinians are only demanding a just peace. We want justice. We don't want peace process per the terminology and the predictions of Henry Kissinger. We want justice. We want our people to receive their rights, their freedom, their dignity. And we are willing, we want to fight. We've been fighting for it. And most of our fight has actually been rather a non-violent fight, if anybody is paying attention. Our strikes, our protests, our civil disobedience, it's been going back not just to 1948, it's been going back to 1936 and the Palestinian strike of 1936 and prior to that. We want you to be involved with us in this fight. We want you to understand that your role now is rather important. It's not about solidarity for its sake. It's about the fact that this is not a fight that could be fought only by the Palestinians, because we're not fighting against Israel only. We are fighting against Israel's benefactors. We're talking about Western governments, powerful armies against the United States that has been a strong supporter of Israel since Israel was founded in 1948. We as Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank and elsewhere, we can't do this without you. So we need you to get involved. We need you to be morally divesting from Israel. And by morally divesting, I'm not talking about hummus, I'm not talking about Israeli products per se. I am talking about a pledge, a vow that you must make, that you are going to stand on the right side of history. Whatever that takes, whatever that means. You need to make a decision that you are standing with the Palestinian people in this just fight for freedom. Not with Israel, not with the Israeli army. And you can't be a silent witness either, because neutrality is not possible under these circumstances. And because we also understand that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere, as Martin Luther King once said. And what is happening in the Middle East is a proof to that theory, that the injustice that started in Palestine and continued to fester and to grow has now reached other parts of the Middle East, and we need this to stop. And we want it to stop in the most peaceful means possible. But we need numbers. We need people to stand with us, millions and millions of them, and to shout from the rooftops of every capital, of every city, of every village, of every country, the same way that we stood united against the apartheid government of South Africa. We need to do the same thing in Palestine. And it is possible, because no amount of firepower, no air force, no Merkava tanks is strong enough, is powerful enough, is large enough to silence the voices of civil societies all around the world. We need you, and we need you now more than ever, because our movement, our boycott movement, is finally reaching the point where we could start talking soon enough about a critical mass. We need that critical mass, so every voice matters. And we very much appreciate all of your solidarity. And thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. And I really hope that I could see you and talk to you in person. And as I said, apologize to you in person as well for not being able to join you today. Thank you so much for your support. God bless, and the very best to the other speakers. Bye-bye.